ELO models, I'm not really going to go into the details of what they are, because I'm going to say that they don't really work for the purposes that we're interested in. The ELO model is a model which was mainly used for chess. When you have head-to-head games between chess players, you get points for a win, and you lose points for a loss. But that point exchange depends on the level of your opponents. So if a very good team loses against a very poor team, they give the other team more points than if a good team loses against another very good team. Then they just exchange a small number of points. And that's a nice website, clubello.com, which uses ELO models to describe football. So my problem with that type of model is that it has no grounding in the randomness argument that I brought up at the start. It's just a sort of exchange of points. It has no grounding in what actual football is, and scoring goals and conceding goals. It's not really grounded in that. And I think you're going to do better with models which are grounded in that kind of thing. So I think it's fun and interesting with the ELO models. Sometimes it's nice to look up, especially for interleague comparisons, where you might rank the teams, but I'm not sure that it's really the best type of modeling. And that's why I'm not going into it. We might have a video later which does explain how you do it, but I'm not a big fan. The 538 Global Club Soccer Rankings, that's got better and better over the years. It started off as an ELO ranking type of system, but they've really fine-tuned it and done some very interesting stuff to make it perform better. Don't think it beats the bookmakers' odds, but they have put in a lot of work. And I basically would recommend that you look into the methodology there to work it, but use it. But they do all of this simulating the league, trying to find out the probability that their team will qualify for the Champions League, that they'll win the Premier League. Interesting to see Manchester City up there as 57%. So they're really trying to make predictions of the future. Just a little bit about how it works, what they do. Again, you can read all of this from their webpage. What they do is they do a lot to look at the market value. So they have a base model, which is the market value of the team. So every year they've got the soccer SPI, this is the global soccer ranking rating of the team. They do a regression. Here they do a linear regression of the total value of the team, the monetary value of each of the players, total them up, give the total value there, and they do a regression there to try and predict in the future how well they'll do. So they predict their postseason ranking based on their market value. Then they combine that. This is just a random parameter, I imagine, that they've tuned up and chosen for some reason. 1/3 of it is the transfer market, 2/3 of it is how they were rated at the end of last season. And then that gives them a pre-season rating. So this, you would call this the prior for their model. It's what you expect before the season started. It takes the rankings from last season and it throws in something to do with the market value of the players. So this is a kind of wisdom of the crowds type of thing. And then they get a pre-season rating of each team. Then they use goals, shot-based expected goals, and non-shot expected goals. So the expected goals we've talked about. Non-shot is basically how often the team gets into the box and are in near shooting positions. And it's a model. I haven't actually looked at this, of course, but it's an interesting model. You try to say how often when you get into particular position, is it likely to be a goal, whether there is a shot or not. And you can fit, well, goals is simple, but you can fit a shot-based expected goals, as we've done in previous lectures. You can also look at this non-shot, which is just based on if there was a shot or not, you get into that position, how likely you were to score. And then for every match, you look at the adjusted goals, you look at the shot-based expected goals, and you look at the non-shot expected goals, and use that to update the rankings of the players. And it was quite cool to see they use exactly this. I showed this heat map of the results. I've no idea why they also used Everton versus Manchester City in their example, but apparently it's a popular example to use. This one is Liverpool versus Brighton. Most likely result 2-0 to Liverpool, but a whole range of different results that they can produce there. Then they simulate the league. Okay. I feel like while I'm talking, I'm going on and on and on about the limitations of these models. Even though I'm presenting how you should use the models, I'm basically talking through the limitations of them. This is some of the stuff that I wrote in Soccermatics. This is, for example, so pre-season predictions. You see a lot of these now. You have 3 different types. You have the ones based on models, like the 538 model. You often read stories before there's a big world championship. You always hear about how Price Waterhouse Cooper or some large consultancy firm have predicted what's going to happen in the World Cup. And there's always a story in the Daily Telegraph about that. And yeah, we've got the 538 model. So you have models, you have the experts they're pundits who are saying what's going to happen. And then you can actually compare this, just what typically happens in this championship. So one model, you can compare these experts and the models to. A simple model is just to say, well, where you finished last year is where you will finish next year. So Liverpool will finish first in the Premier League. Manchester City will finish second, and so on down the table. And what I did is I compared the average position error for pundits who'd actually ranked teams. These are all the experts are put along here, compared to the position the season before. And you see there's only one person who overperformed to any large degree. This was for 2014-15. For 2013-15, there was a few people who did overperform a little bit. I noticed this guy in particular, he overperformed in these seasons, but they didn't really overperform if you just took the average error over these seasons. So all the experts were a little bit lucky for some reason. The experts seem to, I looked into this in more detail in this blog. I just put it up on Medium if you want to have a look at it. This was the year that Leicester won. If you'd just written Leicester won, so they had a very unexpected position. But if you just wrote down, everybody's going to follow exactly the same thing as they did the previous season, you would have done better than all of the experts put together. So these experts who are giving their punditry very seldom do better than just guessing what happened in the previous previous year. And then even the models as well. So even models based on the Poisson distribution, based on the rankings, based on ELO rankings. I haven't tested the 538 model, but it wouldn't surprise me if this was true as well. They don't tend to overperform what happened in the previous year. And this is how much money you would lose if you use the ELO. If you just bet it at random, you'd lose this much money. If you use the ELO club, the Euro Club Index, you would lose this much money. So really no difference there either. And you see this over and over again. The Euro Club Index doesn't beat the betting markets. Oh, I said I wouldn't talk about betting, but I did put a little bit in. I mean, Joseph Buchdahl, who runs the football data, he's written a book really just going home on this analysis time and time again, that you can't beat the bookmakers. The bookmakers' odds are the sort of culmination of the wisdom of the crowds. So they are not likely to book, they just don't beat the bookmakers. So the bookmakers' odds just beat pretty much all of these types of models. He does have a strategy. So now I feel like I'm recommending, he does have a strategy which is based on, sometimes the bookmakers' odds become unbalanced. And then if you're very patient, you can find those types of things. So this is his strategy that he outlines in the book, which has made some kind of gain over the last 5 years. You can look on the webpage for how that works. But it's a very boring strategy of finding when the favorites are mispriced. And the favorites are mispriced now and again by certain bookmakers who aren't doing their job properly. if you're very quick and you have lots of accounts, you can go in there and exploit that tendency. But for the most part, you're not going to win money booking against the bookmakers, because they know better what they're doing than you. Plus, they then have some edge between 1% and 5% over you. So you need a lot more before you're going to get there. Okay, summarizing, simulations, and prediction. I'm just going to leave it at that because I've gone over time and I don't like to go over time.